me, when I got home, all of a sudden I was able to do all of those things. I could go and do whatever I wanted, I could wear whatever I wanted, I could eat whatever I wanted to, and that was overwhelming, to the point where I was like, oh, I can do all these things, but I don't know what to do. Hi everyone, welcome to another video of me rambling about stuff. If you're new here, my name is Coral. I am a PhD candidate in evolutionary anthropology and I am originally from the UK. I live in Toronto and I work in Madagascar. Firstly, before I do anything, I would like to apologise for this guy that's interrupting my video. So this is Skelly, the lab, because I'm currently in my office at the university. And this is Skelly, the lab skeleton, who is currently dressed Halloween themed because he goes to parties and dresses up. And currently he's a pirate for this Halloween that's just gone. So I apologise for him sitting there throughout the whole of this video and probably being very distracting. Okay, so today I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up. So it's currently the 19th of December, and way back at the start of May, on the 1st of May, I filmed a video where I spoke about mental health in the field, and that was before I headed out for my first field season for my PhD. And I'm now just over 7 weeks being back home after that field season that ended up being 5.5 months, a couple of weeks shorter than what I initially planned. But so I'm 7 weeks back and I feel like it's taken probably 4 to 5 weeks, probably 5 weeks, for me to feel normal, or as normal as possible. So it's only probably the past 2, maybe 3 weeks that I've actually started to feel like myself again. So I thought it'd be really good for me to, now that I am on the other side of that field season, the longest field season I've done and the longest time I've been away from home, to do a bit of a reflection on that, especially considering I spoke a lot about ways in which to manage how you feel and self-care and mental health while you're away, and I want to talk about the reality of that time. While me personally, this is my sort of feelings and how I felt. Now everybody, as I said previously, everybody is different, and some people thrive from being in the field, and some people are made for it, and then other people struggle with it and struggle with the disconnect and the loneliness, and even though you're in an incredible place, it can be really difficult. So this is me personally, I'm not trying to generalise for everybody else, but I also want to talk about after the field, because I feel that as a discipline, sort of ecology, biology, conservation, anthropology, whatever, you know, any discipline that includes field work, because I am in a department where there's archaeologists and sociocultural anthropologists who also go away into the field and spend large amounts of time away from home. So it's not just specific to sort of ecology and evolutionary anthro. But we talk as a discipline, we're getting better at talking about sort of mental health and self-care during the field. Not so much in the preparation and in the sort of mentally getting ready for going to the field, but still a little bit. But one thing that I feel we lack in is talking about after the field and the adjustment to being back at home. And usually it's just, any conversations that are had is just, there's a cultural difference, or there's like cultural overload when you come back home, because it's so different to usually when you're away. But there's more to it than that, I feel, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So start off with then a little bit of background about how my fieldwork went. So I left on the 24th of May, which was actually my birthday, so that in itself was a little bit of a mental barrier to get through. I had the morning at home and it was really, really lovely, but then in the afternoon, sort of lunchtime, I had to go to the airport, and because of the way in which the time zones work and the travelling works, by the time I got to Madagascar, it was actually the really, really late in the evening, like 11 o'clock in the evening of the 25th. So by the time I got to my hotel, it was technically the 26th. So I basically missed a whole day and my birthday. So that was quite difficult. But I got out there, and I was meant to be coming back mid-November, but about a week or so after I got there, or just under, the date for the presidential election in Madagascar was announced, and it was actually going to be 2 or 3 days before I was leaving, which meant I would be in the capital city during that time. And it's not always the safest to be in the capital during an election period, because sometimes it can get a little bit volatile. So I made the decision really early on at the start of June to move my flight 2 weeks earlier. So that meant that I left at the end of October instead, which I am very thankful for. Luckily, it didn't cost me anything because I changed it that early. But that meant that instead of about 6 months, I was there for about 5.5, which is still 2.5 months longer than any period of time I've done before. So I was really lucky that during the time I was there, I've spoken about this in other videos that I've uploaded in my sort of fieldwork vlog series, that from about mid-June to the end of July, me and the team were sort of joined by, or we joined the Operation Wallacea expedition for about 7 weeks, which meant that for that first period of time that we were there, for that sort of 2 months that I was in the country, I was constantly surrounded by people, and constantly surrounded by English speaking people as well, some fluent, like it was their first language, other people it might be their second or third, but their English language skills were probably better than mine. So that was really nice. It was also really nice for the team because there's, as well as sort of Western staff or Vaza staff, there was also Malagasy staff. So that meant that my research, or the research assistants on the team, were also surrounded by a lot of people that they knew. One of the research assistants got to be reunited with a sort of like high school friend that she hadn't seen in a while, which was really nice. So it was really lovely for all of us. But then, as I spoke about in another video, and I'll put a picture of it here, I spoke about how hard it was when they left, and that was really tough on all of us. It threw all of us, but especially threw me, out of sort of whack a little bit. And suddenly going from having everyone to minimal amounts of people felt very lonely. I tried to implement a lot of different things. So I read a lot, I watched TV shows, I called home once a week, or tried to when the signal allowed, because the signal was pretty bad at points, and it wasn't just for me, it was for all of the community. For a couple of weeks we weren't able to call out, which made it very difficult. And even when I could call out, it was only for sort of like 10 minutes at a time because of the cost of it, and the having to get, because I've spoken about this in other videos, in Madagascar, you have your phone and you have to have credit on it, so you have to have these teeny tiny little scratch off pieces of paper that have a code on it, and you have to put them in, which is fine, but it's great until you run out. And I would constantly have to be managing, well, how many do I think am I going to need? Can I buy enough at that time? sort of thing. So I implemented, or tried to implement, a lot of those things. Going back into the city every 4-ish weeks to connect to internet and to talk to home was really nice, but that would only be for 2 or 3 days at a time, which in itself, with time zones and everything, was really difficult. But we all got through, and it was only when, for me personally, when I hit the 3 to 4 month mark, it started to get difficult, and I started to not resent being in the field, but I started to not enjoy it, and that mentally was really difficult for me, because the field and being in the forests is my happy place, and it suddenly becoming a not happy place was very hard. And I started to just not enjoy it, and I started to just try and get through the day, and get to bed, to wake up, to have another day and get through that. And it was, for me personally, it was only when I got to, I think, about the last 2 weeks that I suddenly realised what I was doing, and that I was just missing what was going on and what I was doing, that I suddenly had to sort of check myself and tell myself that what you're doing is really amazing, and you need to take this in, because you'll be so sad when you get home and you're no longer doing it. And lo and behold, now I am sad that I'm not there, and I'm excited to go back. It wasn't like that to start off with, but now I am ready to go back. But that 3-4 month period was quite difficult, but we all got through. Luckily, the team that I work with are super supportive, and there was a couple of times where I was ill, and they were really lovely, making sure that I took time to get better, and I owe a lot to those guys. So yeah, we all got through. We all had our own issues, we all struggled. Even the research assistants, who both of them are from Madagascar, even though they're doing fieldwork in their home country, they're still away from home, and they're still disconnected from home like I am, and at points they'll still get lonely because they don't have their sort of creature comforts. So we all struggled, not just me being away that far away from home, but any length of time or any distance away from where you live, you're going to struggle. And we were very good at trying to support each other when it came to that. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, well, actually, before I talk about that, I talked in my first video about a lot of the mechanisms that you put in place, and this year I can say that some of them were successful. Immersing myself in books was very successful. I think I read like 20 odd, like 22 or 23 books or something, because for me, I've got my Kindle, so I could just sit and read. I would read in camp, in my hammock. I would read when out on survey, in between doing behavioural data collection, because there would be times when we would just be sat in between data collection. So that really helped, but other things didn't necessarily help. Watching TV shows didn't help as much as it used to do. Calling home was bittersweet. I would either come out of the conversations feeling really happy and energised and just happy to have spoken to people at home, or I would come out of it feeling a bit drained because maybe, my family back at home were also struggling with me being away, which would then be quite difficult for me. So that was bittersweet, but I feel like I've learnt different ways from going this time to cope compared to last time, because next time I go, so I'm planning to hopefully go again in April, this time only for about 4 months, just over, which is shorter than this time, but it's still a long period of time. I feel like I've learned different ways to cope with the longer period of time when it comes to this next time. So fingers crossed, hopefully that works. But yes, the second thing I wanted to talk about was how I personally felt and dealt with when I came home. I actually think it was harder, the mental shift of coming home, than it was being away. Because for those last 2 months of being away, I was almost longing to be at home because I missed home. And all of us were thinking and talking about all the things we were going to do when we got home. What was the first thing we were going to eat? What was the first thing we were going to do? We were also excited to be able to wear clothes that weren't field clothes, which is ridiculous because at the moment I'm currently wearing the fleece that I wore and took to the field. But we were also excited for that, and we were all talking about it for the weeks leading up to being at home and all the different things that we were going to do. That for me, when I got home, all of a sudden I was able to do all of those things. I could go and do whatever I wanted, I could wear whatever I wanted, I could eat whatever I wanted to, and that was overwhelming, to the point where I was like, oh, I can do all these things, but I don't know what to do. And I tried to explain it to my partner, and I was like, I want to do this, this and this, and he's like, well, you can do this, this and this. It's like, yeah, but I don't think I can. So that's weird. But as well as being overwhelming, that sense, I personally felt really lost. And I think I felt that for the first 4 to 5 weeks of being at home, that every day when you're in the field, because you've got a data collection schedule, and ours was not rigid, well, it was rigid, it was a rigid schedule, and the days were the same. The days were, my alarm goes off at 5, I get up and have breakfast at about 5:30, go out at about 5:45, 6 o'clock, go to follow the group, come back at lunch at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, leave again at about 1:15. After lunch, go to the group, follow the group, finish about 5:30, come back, have a shower, have dinner, and be in bed by 7, and reading for a bit, and then going to sleep by 8, 7:30, 8, and then it would repeat. And it was the same even on days off. I would get up at the same time, have lunch at the same time, have dinner at the same time, and go to bed at the same time. And it was like that for the whole time that I was away. And then all of a sudden I came home, and that was no longer a thing. I no longer had a schedule. I no longer had sort of a purpose for each day, which was to get up and to follow the group and collect data. So when I was at home, I all of a sudden felt lost, like I didn't have a purpose, especially because when I'm here in Toronto, I am teaching, being a teaching assistant, I'm writing grants, writing applications, reports, marking, entering data, whatever it might be. But that's not the only thing that's rigid in that, is the times and the days that I teach. And this semester I haven't been teaching because I came back so late from the field into the middle of the semester. So that helped in the sense of coming back and just having time to decompress and not do anything. But it didn't help because I didn't have a structure, and that was something that I've really struggled with. And I have spoken about it a bit on my Instagram, and the amount of people that have sent me messages whenever I talk about anything like this and tell me how they feel the same, it's shocking. But we don't talk about it enough outwardly in the academic space, so everybody feels like they're the only one that struggles with it, and that they're weird for feeling like that. And I felt weird for feeling like that because I couldn't understand what I was feeling, and I couldn't explain what I was feeling. So if you're listening to this, and you've made it 15 minutes in or 20 minutes in, if you feel like that when you get home, I think that's normal. Like, I do think that feeling lost, feeling like you don't have a purpose, and just generally feeling overwhelmed and struggling for quite some time is normal. Someone said to me the other day that it takes 1 week per month that you're away to adjust to being at home. So on that logic, I was away for 5.5 months, so it should take me about 5.5 weeks, and it has. I don't know if there's any science in that, and I would love to find out how long people take to adjust to being at home, but that would kind of make sense to me. So if you've come back from the field, if you're going out to the field, I think feeling like this when you come back is totally normal, and we should talk about it more, and we should prepare people for feeling like that and be there to talk to people when they do feel like that, because it's quite horrible, especially when you've just come back from this incredible time doing the most, the craziest of things that a lot of people would dream of being able to do, and you're feeling lost, down, sad, anxious about different things. It can feel horrible and lonely. But this is how I felt. Now, I know some people that come back and it takes them about a week to bounce back and they're fine. I know some people that have kind of never really bounced back, and have always struggled. For me, there was a bit of a mental barrier in thinking that I came back about the end of October. I'm due to go back out again sort of early April. That means I will be at home in that period of time for the same length of time that I was away for, and that felt like not a very long period of time to be at home and to get myself mentally ready for going again. Now I feel like I'm mentally ready, but at the time when I first came back, I couldn't even think about going away again, and I kind of didn't want to. I wanted to turn around and say I don't want to go again, which I know I would have regretted, and now I want to, but at the time I couldn't talk about being away. For the first 2 weeks, I asked people, whenever people asked me, I said I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't even talk about it at home, because it was hard to talk about it, and I ended up feeling sad and down because it took me back to when I was struggling, like mentally took me back to when I was struggling while I was there. But this coming year is going to be different. This is the last time I have to go for an extended period of time. It's a shorter period of time. Once I finished it, I finished all of my data collection. I'm planning on doing a bit of travelling afterwards for like a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, going to different parts of the island and seeing more species, and I feel more positive about it. Whereas last time, I knew that was the first of 2 times, and that was a lot. But yeah, that's just my thoughts and feelings towards it all, and I have rambled quite a bit. I hope you can, whoever's listening, I hope some of that resonates with you and makes you feel better. You're not alone in feeling that things are hard when you're away. But let me know your thoughts, and reach out to me, whether it's on here or you can reach out to me privately on Instagram or something. But I'd love to know how other people cope with coming back and being away, and if I'm just the only one that feels like this. Although I know I'm not. It would be nice for me to know that there's other people that have also felt this when coming home. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't, I suggest watching the first video, because I'm probably very different in the way that I talk about this in the first video compared to this one. But please know though that even though I'm saying this is really difficult being away, I would not change it for the world, and I am so happy that I get to do this and that I've got to do it, because it's just sometimes I pinch myself at the fact that my days would be filled with just watching shavakas all day and just watching them be them. So I do love it, I do. It's just at times when it gets hard, it's hard to see or remember that I love it, but I know that I do. Anyway, I will leave it there. If you've made it this far, well done. But I'll be back again soon for more rambling. When I got back, I treated myself, because it's now winter, to a Yeti. It's the best thing ever. It's now 11 o'clock. I made this cup of tea at 8 and it's still warm. Not sponsored, although I would love to be sponsored by Yeti. Imagine.